Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be trying out the brand new Kosas Revealer Skin Improving Foundation. I did not receive this in PR. I bought it with my own money. I have detailed timestamps listed down below in case you wanted to skip ahead to anything. But with all of that out of the way, let's get started. Where to start? It is 5:43 in the morning right now. It is Valentine's Day and I'm using my heart mug. I think I actually got this one for Mother's Day a couple of years ago, but it's the only heart mug I have and it felt really appropriate for being Valentine's Day. So cheers, happy belated Valentine's Day, since you'll be watching this on a day that is not Valentine's Day. So I'm having a morning already. I'm going to interrupt my regularly scheduled foundation review that I had planned for this Friday, or today if you're watching it, the day that I've put it up, and I will push back my foundation review video to have a couple other foundations to talk about, because that's just how it has to work, I think, this month. I also took a shower last night and washed my hair, and I blow dried my hair, and now I've got this lovely bump, this very fluffy piece right up here that just wants to live its best flock of seagulls life, I guess. It actually is the only thing I can stare at in the viewfinder. With the Kosas Revealer Skin Improving Foundation, I have the shade Very Light Cool 120. I hope that this is a good shade match. I have the shade 1 in their tinted moisturizer and the shade 1 in the Revealer concealer, and the shades are just kind of off. They both run really yellow, and I did swatch this one and it seemed to run pretty pink. I'm also hoping that it's just a good shade match in general, not just the undertones, but like the overall shade match. I have been having a really hard time shade matching lately. I think that I'm buying the right shade, or things that normally would have been my shade, but all of a sudden they don't match. So I have to figure that out, because I want to wear the right foundation shade. The box has a ton of information, so I'm kind of just going to read over what that says, and then I'll hop over to what the Sephora app says. But it is the Kosas Revealer Skin Improving Foundation, medium coverage, natural dreamy finish. A clean, skin-improving, medium coverage foundation powerhouse treatment and SPF to reveal your best, most vibrant skin without feeling makeup-y. Let me tell you, I cannot stand that word. Words that are not words are like pet peeves of mine, so anytime I hear someone say makeup-y, like, it kind of makes me cringe. It like gives me a visceral reaction hearing words that are not words being used in the context of words. Your dream skin revealed. Alive, brighter, hydrated, visibly plumped, soothed, protected, and skincare powered with hyaluronic acid, niacinamide peptides. The list goes on. So here is the packaging. It is in a really nice glass bottle. It's much nicer than the previous packaging that the brand has come out with. I'm going to see if the app has any other things. Skin Reviving SPF Treatment Foundation instantly blends like a second skin with a natural dreamy finish to blur visibly smooth texture and minimize pores. Powerhouse blend of actives is clinically proven to hydrate, brighten, soothe, plump, and protect over time, long-wearing, silicone-free. Best applied with fingers, makeup brush, Revealer dual-ended makeup blender, or cosmetic sponge. Use 1 pump for light coverage or 2 pumps for medium coverage. I didn't even realize that this came with a applicator. I didn't see that when I was buying the foundation. It doesn't look like it's been released on Sephora yet, that there's a specific tool that they recommend using this with. Okay. Well, that's something, I guess, to be aware of. Going over the basics real quick, it is $42 for 1 fluid ounce, which is pretty standard for foundation. There are 36 shades that run from very light to rich deep, and it is meant to be a medium natural finish, but very hydrating and long wearing. Here are some swatches so you can see what the Kosas Revealer Foundation in the shade Very Light Cool 120 looks like against some other foundations. Kosas Revealer Foundation in the shade 120, Kosas Tinted Moisturizer in the shade 1, Kosas Revealer Concealer in the shade 1, Ilia True Skin Serum Foundation in the shade Formentera, Makeup Forever Ultra HD Foundation in the shade R250. Rare Beauty Liquid Touch Weightless Foundation in the shade 160C. I did do just my regular skincare routine this morning. It's already dried down and set in, so I am ready to apply the foundation. I'm not using any kind of primers or anything, so that we can see how the foundation is actually wearing throughout the day. I'm going to shake it, because I generally shake whatever product I'm going to put on my face if it's a liquid. I'm going to pump out one pump just to see what it looks like formula-wise. It is a little bit on the runny side. It is dripping down just a tiny bit on the palette where I sprayed it. The shade looks to be okay from first glance. I'm going to just take a little bit of that and run it down my face and neck to see what kind of, that was maybe a little bit much. Like, obviously to me it looks like the shade is not great. Not as great as I would have wanted. But if I run it into my regular neck, I feel like it goes away. So I think, obviously I can make it work since it does end up matching into where my neck is. But on my face, I just feel like it looks not right. I just worked the rest of what was left from the pump onto the brush, and I'm just stippling it around my face. I know I've said this in other videos that I've done, but even if a foundation has SPF in it, I do highly encourage you to still wear a regular SPF underneath, because you don't know how much you're applying is actually going to be good coverage. You need a specific amount of SPF to really have the protection that you need from SPF. With foundation, without foundation. I am really liking how it's looking so far. It does definitely look like it is drying down to more of a natural finish. It does look like it's reflecting slightly from the ring light, but in the mirror where I'm looking, it does seem like it's more of a natural finish. A very light dewiness to it. I wouldn't even say that it's like a full-on satin finish. It just seems just very slightly on the luminous side. I'm going to squirt out another pump of the foundation to use for the sponge, because I did use the entire pump on this half of my face. This is a thicker foundation, so I am thinking it should play pretty well with the sponge. I feel like the sponge did soak up quite a bit of that foundation. Do you feel like if you're going to use a sponge to apply this foundation, you are going to end up going through it much quicker than if you were to use a brush? Not that I don't like how it's looking on this side of my face, because I do really enjoy what I'm seeing. I just think that if you are trying to use the most out of your foundation, that you get more out of your product if you use the brush than the sponge. Here is what one layer on both sides looks like, with a little enhancements on my worst spots, but I still say it's pretty much one layer. I didn't go overboard applying extra foundation. Here's what the brush side looks like compared to the sponge side. Brush, sponge. I like what I'm seeing so far. I think the shade match ended up working out a little bit better than I was expecting it to when I was first putting it on. I think it's done a pretty good job at blurring and smoothing over my larger pores and my more textured areas on the side of my face. I think the sponge did a better job at blurring the pores and texture. I feel like it does look a little bit more pitted. I think that my skin tone was evened out. I think the redness is nice and neutralized. I like the coverage. I would say this is maybe a low medium coverage for what I would look for. There's still a lot coming through skin-wise, which maybe if I wasn't so mad at my skin right now, I wouldn't be so upset about. But I think personally for me right now, I would like a little bit more coverage. but looking in the viewfinder, it looks really nice. I think it does look like it's a good medium coverage. There's not much more that could be covered under the umbrella term of medium coverage. So I think that this actually is looking really nice. I can touch my face and I'm not lifting any product. It does feel like it's dried down to the point where I can apply products on top of it. It's dried down. I wouldn't say it's a powder finish, and I wouldn't necessarily say that it feels like skin. I definitely do feel a layer of something on my face, but it does feel dry enough to be able to apply products on top of it. It's not sticky or tacky. So far, I think that it's looking really nice. I'm going to finish my makeup off camera, and I will come back and show you the final look, as well as go over some of my preliminary thoughts about the foundation. Here is the finished makeup look. I have all of the details of the makeup that I used on my face down below in the description box in case you wanted to check anything out. Spoiler alert, I did use a lot of Kosas products because I figured I was testing out the foundation. Why not see how all the products from the product line interact together? It took me about 45 minutes to put my face on. So it's been sitting for a little while now, and honestly, I'm not loving it. I don't want to say too early that I don't like this foundation because there are a lot of things that can change how the foundation wears. But so far, I think that I'm not blown away or overly impressed with how the foundation is going. I've tried a lot of other foundations in the last couple of weeks that I've seen much better results in this amount of time or at first application that I've really enjoyed right from the beginning, and this one is just not doing that for me. I'm noticing that it's looking very heavy. I'm noticing that it's not as blurring or smoothing as some of the other foundations that I've used. It's not as plumping as it's claiming to be. So here's what it looks like up close, and I do think you can see the texture shining through where it should be blurred. As I had pointed out before, it looked like the sponge did a much better job at blurring and smoothing this area, because I do really like how this side is looking, but over here all I can see are the imperfections shining through. I'm sitting here in natural lighting. It's about 10:30, so the foundation's been on for about 4.5 hours, and it doesn't look like we're gonna have a particularly sunny day. It's pretty overcast looking, so I figured now is as good of a time as any to do a small check-in. Before I really get going with my day, I finally have this little bit of time to sit down and kind of fill you in with what I'm feeling about the foundation. So, as a reminder, this half was using a brush to apply, and this half was the sponge. I asked my husband what side he preferred, and he agrees that the brush looks very heavy. It looks very heavy, especially around the center of my face, and the sponge side looks a lot more seamless, a lot more lightweight, and just more natural looking overall, which I do really agree with. It's really heavy looking right in this area, and I think that it's really enhancing a lot of this texture. I almost feel like it didn't even stick fully right in this area. So some of the problems that I am seeing with the foundation can be adjusted with primers, setting sprays, different kinds of product combinations. But for me, when I'm looking at the claims of this foundation, I don't feel like I should have to use certain products to get a certain effect. I do feel like for the price point and the claims that it's making, this foundation really should work a little bit better than I'm seeing. On the sponge side, I think it's a lot more blurred, a lot more smooth. I do still see some texture, but not in the way that I feel like it's really showing on this side. I feel like 4.5 hours in, all of the coverage that I had on my breakouts is gone. I feel like everything is shining through and it's very apparent. Again, with a medium coverage, long wearing foundation, I don't expect at 4 hours in to already have this much visible. I have texture on the side of my face, a lot of bumps and just stuff like that, especially down here by my jawline. And I feel like that, again, is very emphasized in this foundation. I feel like any dry spots, I am really getting a lot of clinging to, a lot of emphasizing. I do have some ideas of what products I'd like to try pairing this foundation with to see if I can get a better experience out of, but I just don't feel like I want to try working with a foundation that's very finicky. Just because I've had experience now with over 40 foundations, and there are certain foundations that I don't have to do anything with, and they do work. So finding a foundation like this one where it's not doing as it claims as well as its counterparts or other foundations that claim to be very similar, it's just hard for me to want to put in the effort or recommend that anyone else puts in the effort when there are already products on the market that do just work without having special needs to help it perform at its best, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And this is just a few hours in, and I'm not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, with this one. It's been a couple of hours since I've really looked at the foundation. I've been doing all sorts of chores, lots of laundry today, lots of dishes, lots of cooking, just a lot of running around for the most part, a lot of like lived in daily life stuff. So I haven't had a lot of time to check the makeup. I have worn a mask a couple of times. What I'm really impressed with as I'm looking in the mirror right now is that I don't see any mask lines or any wear off specifically because of wearing the mask. So point in the positive column, it is good for underneath masks. What I'm noticing besides that though is not super great, but I feel a little bit better now at the end of the night than I did when I did my first check-in in the beginning of the day. I think that it wore a lot better as the day went on, but it took a long time to get there. But that is from a distance. When I get the camera up close, you will see there's quite a bit of problem areas. But from a distance, I think that it looks okay. I don't think it looks too shiny. I think that if you are oily, this probably would work well with your skin type because it does seem to be mattifying and oil controlling. I have almost complete wear off of my nose. My chin has quite a bit of wear off, but it's not the worst wearing foundation I've ever worn on my chin or on my nose. I think that the bulk of wear off happened around the 4-hour mark, which is really interesting. I don't think that the foundation itself has worn much worse than what I commented on during my first check-in. This is the side that I did the brush, and this is the side that I did the sponge application. So the sponge I think still looks a lot smoother and a lot more filled in, but I do think that there's quite a bit of breakup around my nose and a lot of texture going on right there. I think that it looks very heavy underneath my eyes and around my nose. It's like gathering and separating. It's not sitting well on dry patches. But on the other side that I used the sponge, I still feel like things are really more smoothed over and still better looking overall. I think that the wear off, it's not very long lasting. To me, it seems like the foundation or the base wore really well where there were additional products, but the foundation itself, where it was just like along my jawline or pretty much right along my forehead, I don't put a ton of product there. It seems like those areas really broke down and that there's almost no foundation left, but it is all just very sheer or lightly covered skin. I believe I mentioned earlier, I do have some product pairings that I'm interested in trying out, and obviously the foundation will wear differently when it is set with powder, when you spray setting spray, or when you're using different primers. So obviously different products will help enhance different features of this foundation. I just want to reiterate that the purpose of my wear test when I don't use those products is to see how the foundation itself actually performs. I will, in future wear tests, be using those products and playing around with different product combinations to see how to get the best wear out of these foundations, which is what the foundation roundup video is for. Let me know, what do you think about this foundation? Is this one that you were interested in trying out? And what are your favorite products from Kosas? Because I'm always interested in trying more things. That is going to be all from me today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I will see you again very soon in my next video.
Is that it?